Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Zod Corner. My name is Keon Zod, and I will be your host today. A lot of things are being anticipated for how global relations will be in the next 4 years due to Donald Trump being elected as the American president, with his inauguration set to take place in January. One thing that was on the horizon for what a lot of people are looking forward to how it will go is how will his relations with Canada and Mexico look like. This is definitely going to be something interesting to look at due to a lot of his intentions in his campaign to have a protectionist administration, with his intention of trying to put America first and trying to protect American jobs and what have you. In the past few weeks, Donald Trump put a post on Truth Social where he announced his intention to have a 25% tariff on imported goods, which will be coming from Canada and Mexico. He did this to keep his campaign promises of trying to be protectionist and putting America first. This has caused a lot of uproar in Canadian politics due to the fact that in one case that if America does put these tariffs, it could be causing a collapse on the Canadian economy due to the fact that the United States is Canada's largest trading partner, and as well due to the fact that Canada and America's economy is very intertwined. Another problem Donald Trump saw was the borders. Not only were the borders down south problematic to him, but as well he talked there were problems in the border with regards to the border north with Canada. Interestingly enough, on a side note, we can see that Donald Trump being elected has caused a lot of discussion in Canadian politics about immigration, with even Justin Trudeau talking about net zero immigration, despite him increasing immigration numbers throughout his leadership as Prime Minister. A lot of people, however, do consider this for multiple reasons to be just a political tactic, especially due to the fact that his polling right now as we speak is low. These tariffs can mean many things for the Canadian economy. One thing that will be certain is that Canadian goods are going to become more expensive in America. There's a few reasons as to why this will be. One reason is tariffs are an import tax in a sense. So Canadian companies, if they are going to operate in America and operate in the American consumer market, they will have to be paying more taxes. And in order to make up for that lost revenue, these Canadian companies will have more expensive products so that they can make money. Due to this, the Canadian goods will become more expensive and it will be less likely for American consumers to now buy Canadian goods. Meaning, as a result of this, a lot of profit for Canadian businesses will probably be going down. Not only will this affect Canadian businesses, but it's going to affect the GDP to a large degree as well. GDP is one way to measure the economy, and one way how GDP is calculated are what net exports are. The problem is, when you look at how the net exports will go, America will be at an advantage due to the fact that now tariffs are going to be placed on the Canadian economy, and now America could be having more net exports when it comes to trade with Canada. Meaning, it's more likely now Canada could be in a trade deficit. However, with that being said, there could be a way for Canada to go with this is by putting a retaliatory tariff. However, the other problem is with putting retaliatory tariff, America could put tariffs back on Canadian goods, and by Canada putting retaliatory tariffs, it would as well make the Canadian economy more expensive and will raise the cost of living to a degree. In this case, we could see how in different situations, these tariffs could be disadvantaged for Canada and the US, but by far this will be having more problems for the Canadian economy, especially as we consider the size of the American economy. In many ways, tariffs could still be beneficial and could still be something wise to implement. However, it's going to be not a great way to put it in this case, due to the fact that this would be just coming off from a 25% tariff and something which will be very radical and very large to put in. And that this will be something which will be having big economic shocks. One way for tariffs to even work is that it would have to work in the long term, because tariffs, if they're going to be used as tax revenue, they could help incentivize local products, local dose taxes, use as important tax revenue for different ways, and make it meaningful. So even for tariffs could still be good in many cases, but it would have to be something on a long-term basis, not something which would be a short-term basis. There was many ways for how Canada wanted to renegotiate the situation with Donald Trump. One way was that Justin Trudeau went to Mar-a-Lago. Despite Donald Trump not being inaugurated as president yet, he went down to Mar-a-Lago to discuss with President-elect Donald Trump, who was the 45th president, how can this situation be prevented. Many ministers surprisingly did not go with Justin Trudeau, and that this was mainly Justin Trudeau and a few other ministers. Chrystia Freeland, who is the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance, did not go with him. Mélanie Joly, who is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, as well did not appear with Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau thanked him for the meeting, and from Justin Trudeau's perspective, he thought that it was a real constructive meeting, and that it was a meeting which went well for the most part. Besides the tariffs, other important issues which they talked about was border security, fentanyl, the defense, especially with regards to NATO spending targets, and Keystone XL. Both leaders, Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump, had stated their intentions to work more on better border security, despite Justin Trudeau trying to say that the border between Canada cannot be comparable to the border down south with Mexico. One thing that definitely was controversial to a lot of Canadians was how Donald Trump made the intention of talking about that Canada should just join America if they fear there's going to be an economic collapse. Those were the words he directly told Justin Trudeau, especially as Justin Trudeau was fearing an economic collapse. He went as far as trying to troll Justin Trudeau more by even going on social media and trying to talk about how Justin Trudeau is Governor Trudeau, and that he even made a post on social media with him climbing up a mountain with a Canada flag there. The mass majority of Canadians do not support joining the United States, and there's a few reasons why. One reason is, of course, there being a different political landscape and having to adjust to a different society to some extent. There's definitely going to be vast cultural changes, even though the Canadian culture and American culture, for the most part, is pretty similar. And as well, this would also mean Canada losing its own sovereignty and its own unique identity. Another thing as well that can definitely be certain is that many Canadians do think that joining the United States could have some reasonable benefits due to the fact that the economy will be changing and that the American dollar is stronger than the Canadian dollar, and as well due to the fact that America does have a higher GDP per capita. However, in all, the vast majority of Canadians still think joining the United States is a bad idea. There are many things as far as what could happen. One thing that could be possible are further negotiations on dealing with the border or trying to find certain compromises to prevent this turning to a trade war or that the tensions get worse. We could as well see a similar situation to the USMCA renegotiations in 2018, which was Justin Trudeau, Donald Trump, and the Mexican president back then changing certain provisions to NAFTA, despite USMCA still being closely similar to NAFTA, despite there being a few different provisions. Or in all, it could lead to a trade war, meaning if Canada puts retaliatory tariffs, America could increase the tariffs from like 25 to 40 or even 50%, and this could turn to a trade war, and that this would only really end unless one country would want to put an end to it. And most likely, these trade wars would only end if one country feels like there's no purpose for them to continue doing it. And realistically, it would be the United States winning a trade war against Canada, whether or not it would be something we would want to admit. Canada's definitely in a few problems, one being its limiting capabilities, which has honestly been self-placed on us, especially if we consider the carbon tax. This carbon tax was pretty ridiculous for us to even put on ourselves, considering how when it comes to trade, oil and gas and petroleum is one of Canada's best exports that they send to the rest of the world. And in the case of a carbon tax, now since there's going to be limits on how oil and gas will be produced and on oil and gas production, that's a big hit on the Canadian economy, and that's a lot of revenue that has been lost for Canada. Now, other regulations is also being put in place, which to an extent could be affecting the Canadian economy from having productivity and from being prosperous. Definitely, we could see a few political changes happening due to this. One thing is if Justin Trudeau fails to take any significant action, we could see this hurting his campaign, especially for the election, which will be happening in less than a year from now. And as well, we could be seeing his polling numbers dampening, especially since already many Canadians think that Pierre Poilievre would be able to collaborate with Donald Trump better, even though many Canadians thought if Kamala Harris had been elected, Justin Trudeau would have been better to deal with Kamala Harris. So that's as well going to be one thing we could see helping the Conservatives, this tariff that Donald Trump may put on Canadian businesses and on Canadian products. However, if Justin Trudeau does manage to somewhat deal with it, I cannot really see this helping him to a large extent, but it could to a large degree help his polling numbers a little bit and could prevent at least from a big landslide from happening. We will see how a lot of things will be happening, and thank you for watching today's video. My name is Keon Azad, and this is the Azad Corner. Leave your comments down below how you feel about the video and about the topic. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video, share it to as much people as you can, and I'll see you in the next video.